Around 400 million years ago, the ocean was an incredibly unforgiving place. If your body wasn't covered in a thick layer of rock-hard armor back then, you were essentially just a mobile snack begging to be eaten. Literally everything around wore heavy armor. Fish swam in solid bone helmets. Ancient mammals had protective plates embedded in their skin, and even squids hid inside giant cone-shaped shells. But if you look at the ocean today, that heavily armored look is almost entirely extinct. Aside from a few stubborn holdouts like turtles and crabs, the vast majority of evolution's winners decided that being soft and vulnerable is actually the superior way to live. At first glance, it seems completely backwards. Why would nature spend millions of years perfecting the ultimate impenetrable shield, only to eventually just scrap the blueprints entirely? Why are the most successful and deadly predators on the planet today, like great whites and orcas, swimming around completely naked? To understand why nature completely ditched heavy armor, we need to look back at the architects of the most heavily armored era in our planet's history, the placoderms. These were prehistoric fish literally encased in full-plate armor. For nearly 50 million years, they ruled as the undisputed apex predators of the ocean. And we're not talking about regular scales or flimsy shells here. Their defense was made of thick, interlocking bone plates that completely locked down their head and torso. The absolute poster child of this era is the terrifying Dunkleosteus. It didn't even have teeth in the traditional sense. Instead, it rocked massive, razor-sharp bone plates that worked like a pair of giant, self-sharpening shears. Packing a bite force that rivaled a T-Rex, it had one single purpose: crushing right through the armor of other heavy-duty fish. It was your classic evolutionary arms race, where the only answer to a thicker shield was building a much heavier hammer. Back in those ancient times, packing serious heat was a rarity. Early predators were, frankly, pretty bad at their jobs. They were slow, clunky, and their jaws were honestly pathetic. In a world where most creatures are just lazily drifting through the water column, thick armor is the ultimate zero-effort defense. You didn't need to be smart, you didn't need to be fast, you just had to be too damn hard to swallow. The ocean back then wasn't a high-speed car chase, it was more like a slow, lumbering demolition derby for survival. However, as predators evolved and got better at their jobs, the price tag on being impenetrable skyrocketed. Growing real, functional bone armor? That's an absolutely massive drain on resources. To build and maintain these thick plates, fish were basically stealing massive amounts of minerals and calories from their own muscles and internal organs. Plus, hauling around inches of solid bone completely tanks your agility. You become heavy, rigid, and you swim with the speed and grace of an underwater brick. Basically, you've turned yourself into a bank vault with a tail, great at protecting what's inside, but completely useless for anything else. Eventually, predators just stopped looking for weak spots in the armor entirely and decided to just crush the whole thing. Certain fish evolved massive flat teeth that operated exactly like industrial presses. They didn't need finesse or grace anymore. One solid bite was all it took to turn a highly expensive bone shield straight into gravel. And then you had predators like ancient marine snails taking a completely high-tech approach. By deploying acid and a rough, sandpaper-like tongue, they learned how to drill perfectly round holes straight through the thickest shells. At that point, your impenetrable defense just becomes a heavy-duty lunchbox, and the enemy has the key. Evolution realized that super heavy armor had become a massive losing investment. The more resources you pour into it, the more specialized the predators become at breaking it open. And that's when animals developed the ultimate winning strategy, maneuverability. The ocean transformed from an arena of slow-moving tanks into a high-speed racetrack. Maintaining a heavy shell is a 24/7 tax on your body. You're paying for it even when there isn't a single enemy in sight. But speed is a pay-as-you-go service. You only burn that energy when a shark is actively chasing you. If you can move twice as fast as the predator, it absolutely does not matter how soft your skin is. They're simply never going to touch you. By shedding all that heavy armor, animals suddenly unlocked a massive energy surplus. All those freed up resources got pumped straight into developing perfect sensory organs, a larger brain for outsmarting the enemy, and most importantly, accelerated reproduction. In the long-term evolutionary economy, it is way more efficient to just let predators snack on a few of your soft-bodied squad members, rather than wasting millions of years trying to build one single indestructible individual. Moreover, animals locked in solid bone are extremely vulnerable to global catastrophes. If your entire skeleton is on the outside, you are trapped in that shape forever. You can't just quickly evolve into a more streamlined creature when the climate changes or the food supply vanishes. Soft-bodied animals are like biological clay. They're flexible, able to adapt and mold themselves into completely new niches in a matter of millions of years. Heavily armored species, on the other hand, are biological bricks. And that is exactly why almost all the living tanks of the Devonian period went extinct, while the seemingly unimpressive, squishy little fish survived to inherit the Earth. Evolution doesn't reward the toughest design. It rewards the one that can redesign itself the fastest. But if heavy armor is such a terrible idea, why are crabs and turtles still hanging around today? Well, the truth is, they found an evolutionary loophole. The heavy shell strategy actually still works, but only if you completely give up on trying to be an athlete. These creatures survive in slow-moving ecological niches, where the local predators are either just as sluggish as they are, or simply lack the heavy-duty tools required to break them open. In fact, the crab shape turned out to be so incredibly successful for its specific environment that nature created something called carcinization, a bizarre process where completely different types of crustaceans keep independently evolving into the shape of a crab. But unless you are literally a crab, if you want to survive out here, you better be fast. Just look at the great white shark. It is basically just a massive, high-speed mussel with teeth. It doesn't even have heavy bones. Its entire skeleton is made of lightweight cartilage. In the modern ocean, the true winners are glass cannons, the ones who strike first and completely vanish before the counterattack even happens. Now, of course, forms of physical defense still exist today, but they've gotten a lot smarter. Whales, for example, didn't bother with a hard shell. Instead, they grew a biological mattress. They have a massive, thick layer of blubber that works as the ultimate shock absorber. A shark bite will simply rip out a chunk of fat without ever touching a vital organ, and the whale just keeps on swimming, completely functional.
So, could the era of heavy armor ever make a comeback? Nature does love to recycle successful concepts, but today, There is one massive problem. The competition has gotten way too smart. If a fish with a literal stone face appeared in the ocean tomorrow, an orca wouldn't even bother trying to break her teeth on it. She would just use basic physics and ram it at top speed. It doesn't matter how indestructible your shell is, the blunt force impact of a multi-ton predator hitting you at 30 miles per hour is going to turn any victim's insides straight into jelly.
For heavy armor to ever start winning again, the entire world would have to critically slow down. But once nature successfully engineered powerful brains and high-speed muscles, she absolutely never looked back. The era of living, breathing tanks is gone forever. And honestly, that is definitely for the best, because I highly doubt any of us would ever want to run into a highly aggressive, sentient piece of rock while taking a swim.